Hi everybody, welcome to the Mild Rumpus, coming at you live from the House of Flimsy, my dilapidated one-bedroom apartment here in New York City that is filled with books and noise. Today is Tuesday and there is a brand new tag floating around. It was just created yesterday by Carl over at Please Read Your Book. He kindly tagged me. It is called the Place and Time tag. It consists of 5 really interesting questions, and quite frankly, I'm just excited to take part in this one. Number 1, a book that reminds you of your past. For me, that book would be Isaac Storm by Erik Larson. If you've ever read any of Erik Larson's work, you know that they're nonfiction books that are so gripping they read like a nonfiction novel. This book, Isaac Storm, is set at the turn of the last century, and it tells the story of Isaac Klein, who was the chief weatherman of Texas. In a lot of ways, this story reminds me of what went down with the Titanic, pun intended. Galveston, Texas, where the book is set and where I'm originally from, is a small barrier island in the Gulf Coast, but at the time of this novel, it was a booming international city. It was considered the Ellis Island of the West. It was huge in immigration and trade. It had a lot of firsts for the state of Texas. It had the first post office. It had the first gas lights, the first opera house, the first orphanage, the first telephone and electric lights. It had the first medical college, which is still there, the University of Texas Medical Branch. And ironically, it also had the first insurance company. And because Galveston was this big metropolitan booming city, Isaac got it in his head that it was indestructible. But the reality is, it was only 5 feet above sea level. So when the Great Galveston Storm of 1900 hit, it wasn't so great for the people of Galveston. They were caught completely unaware. Isaac had reassured them that they had nothing to worry about. The children were playing in puddles, people were goofing around, making jokes. Meanwhile, the sea level eventually rose to 15 feet. And approximately 10,000 people died. It remains the deadliest natural disaster in U.S. history to this day. So this is still a huge piece of the history and culture of Galveston, Texas. There's a lot of pride in the fact that the people were able to bounce back and rebuild the island. They built a seawall. They raised the island. Some sections were raised 22 feet. Others were raised 9 feet. And that's everything. That's including the buildings, the train rails, the fire plugs, the water, everything was lifted up, and they pumped in mud from the ship channel. And in 1915, there was another big storm, and that was kind of the first test for the island, and it helped tremendously. There was much less destruction and death. So for me, it was really fascinating to read the book, to see photographs and know the locations that they're writing about. Even some of the people, the names are still around on the island. The place where he did his research and wrote the book is the place that I learned to love to read, which is Rosenberg Library. Shout out to Karen Stanley, who is still working in the children's department. It's a really fascinating book, and it really had a huge effect on how meteorologists do their jobs to this day. So check that one out. It's a good one. Number 2, a book that is set in a place you would like to visit. I would love to visit Iceland. Like, that is number 1 on my bucket list, is to go to Iceland, give Bjork a high five. Actually, no, never. If you ever see Bjork, just admire from a distance. Don't attempt to give her a high five. You will live to regret it. So after I don't give Bjork a high five, I would go and soak in that. I think it's a spring. But the water, it looks like it's glowing, and people cover themselves in the mud, and it's supposed to be healing or something. But the biggest thing is, I want to see the Northern Lights. Like, that is number 1 on my bucket list. I don't want to leave this planet without having laid eyes on the Northern Lights. As for a book that's set in Iceland, I've only read one, and I didn't really like it, to be honest with you. So I guess I'll talk about a book I haven't read yet, which is Boulder. I see people talk about it all the time, and I know it was shortlisted for, I want to say, the Booker Prize, but I don't really know anything about it. The only reason I chose this book is because I looked up books set in Iceland, and it was at the top. Number 3, a book that is set in a foreign country that you admire. Switzerland has their act together. They seem to be happy there. I don't think there's a high unemployment rate, and they seem to stay out of trouble, right? Like, isn't that what they're known for being kind of neutral and chill? I'm down for neutral and chill. So Switzerland. And a book that is set in Switzerland is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. And I went with this one because if you read Frankenstein, the story unfolds in Geneva, where Mary Shelley was when she started this book. The whole thing started off as a competition to see who could write the scariest story, and guess who came out on top? But you also, through the book, travel to England and Germany and Scotland, so you really get a lot of bang for your buck with this one. Do I really have to tell you what Frankenstein is about? Can we just, we're gonna move on. Number 4, a book set in the city that you live in. This was tough because so many books are set in New York, but I went with an author who has never let me down, and that is James Baldwin, this ancient copy of Go Tell It on the Mountain. I believe this book is semi-autobiographical, but don't quote me on that. It tells the story of John Grimes, who's a teenager living in Harlem. His stepfather is a Pentecostal storefront preacher, and the whole book takes place in a single day. He is coming to terms with his spirituality, his family, his sexuality, a whole bunch of things, but very good book. And it's set in New York. Oh, last one. Here we go. Number 5, a book set in the future that you think is or will be realistic. I feel like in every single one of my videos at some point I talk about Octavia E. Butler. It could become a drinking game. So if for those playing at home that are of legal age, now's the time. So the first book I read of hers was Kindred, and of course, mind blown. If you haven't read that book, what are you waiting for? It is a masterpiece. I followed that up with Parable of the Sower and its sequel, Parable of the Talents. So in this book, the protagonist is Larkin, who is the daughter of Lauren from the previous book. And her mother has sort of set out to create this new religion in sort of a post-apocalyptic America. And there's a passage that happens very early in the book that I would like to read to you, because when I read this for the first time, my jaw just hit the floor. I got, goosebumps all over. And yeah, I'm just going to read it and let Octavia speak for herself. If you don't want spoilers, skip ahead, okay? It's sort of a long passage, but hang in there. You're going to be impressed. So in this portion of the book, they're talking about like all the violence is taking place and how back in the day you would only see this type of things from like the Ku Klux Klan, that sort of thing, right? But she says, I couldn't help wondering though whether these people with their crosses had some connection with my current least favorite presidential candidate, Texas Senator Andrew Still Jarrett. It sounds like the sort of thing his people might do, a revival of something nasty out of the past. Did the Ku Klux Klan wear crosses as well as burn them? The Nazis wore the swastika, which is a kind of cross, but I don't think they wore it on their chests. There were crosses all over the place during the Inquisition, and before that during the Crusades. So now we have another group that uses crosses and slaughters people. Jarrett's people could stand behind it. Jarrett insists on being a throwback to some earlier, simpler time. Now does not suit him. Religious tolerance does not suit him. The current state of the country does not suit him. He wants to take us all back to some magical time when everyone believed in the same God, worshipped him in the same way, and understood that their safety in the universe depended on completing the same religious rituals and stomping anyone who was different. There was never such a time in this country, but these days, when more than half the people in the country can't read at all, history is just one more vast unknown to them. Jarrett supporters have been known now and then to form mobs and burn people at the stake for being witches. Witches in 2032! A witch, in their view, tends to be a Muslim, a Jew, a Hindu, a Buddhist, or in some parts of the country, a Mormon, a Jehovah's Witness, or even a Catholic. A witch may also be an atheist, a cultist, a well-to-do eccentric. Well-to-do eccentrics often have no protectors or much that's worth stealing. And cultist is a great catch-all term for anyone who fits into no larger category and yet doesn't quite match Jarrett's version of Christianity. Jarrett's people have been known to beat and drive out Unitarians, for goodness sake. Jarrett condemns the burnings, but does so in such mild language that his people are free to hear what they want to hear. As for the beatings, the tarring, the feathering, the destruction of the heathen houses of devil worship, he has a simple answer. Join us. Our doors are open to every nationality, every race. Leave your sinful past behind and become one of us. Help us to make America great again. Written in 1998, by the way. And now that I have lost half of you, I'd like to tag some people. Oh, God. And it goes without saying, if you are watching this video and you want to do this tag, you are it. These are some channels that I would like to tag. Tom Orange, who just celebrated their 1-year anniversary on BookTube. Congratulations. Sin's Book Nook, Reading with Mo, Bandy's Books, MJ at Reading This Life, Bob Can Read, and Crizzy Books. Tag, you are it. Do not feel obligated, but I would love to see your responses. As always, please do all the things that you're supposed to do. Feed the algorithm. I don't understand it, but it helps get the video out there, and I appreciate everyone who leaves a comment, shares your thoughts, gives me some feedback. Thank you. Oh, tomorrow I will be posting my March TBR video, so be on the lookout for that. It has the dumbest theme ever. It's really silly and stupid, but I feel like the books themselves are really, really good. It's a nice mix, and I've already read 2 of them, and I've started on the 3rd, and so far there hasn't been a stinker in the bunch. So be on the lookout for that, and until then, I will see you very soon. Happy reading. Bye.